All right, it seems to be live. Make sure it's recording adequately, hopefully. All right, it seems loud enough for sure. Anyway, try to get rid of some of these extra windows. We don't need these right now. Next one. Where's minimize? That minimize or close? Close, I think. I just want this one. I definitely don't want to fuck this one up. Close that down, and that should do it. All right, so then we'll do some comments and some commentary. And I should be able to draw now if I need to. I believe I've got something working here. But anyway, so if the whole thing crashes, I probably won't be back till some other time because I don't think I'll try to fix it now. Anyway, so I did a little ferrocell research, fiddling with ferrofluid. So it's just a couple of slides. There's a little round magnet on it, small, little tiny magnet, small. And one LED from a flashlight, where I took the lens off the flashlight, so it's just a little LED shining up. And the trick is, it appears, something I'm confirming that I observed in some of the demonstration videos, Ken Wheeler and the rest, that the light, for certain, both emanates from the flashlight in the sense that those little lines going down can be bent towards the flashlight. I mean, that's how they look. So it's very three-dimensional. So those two little lines, I guess I can use the mouse, these two little wings here, you'll see when I play the video, they move very easily. But the light always has to hit them perpendicular. So it's always got to be the light's hitting the wings, on the flat side, sort of, and that's what makes them light up. So they can't exist unless there's a light shining that hits them perpendicular, so to speak. So they're anywhere. So the magnet's creating them all the way around. It's just wherever the light happens to be is where they show up. So I was thinking of Ken Wheeler's solar ferrocell, and I'm betting that somewhere in the mechanism, he has holes drilled for the light to come through. Because I don't think it would really work unless you do that, because then you'd have lines everywhere. The whole thing would just light up, because the lines are really just the pieces of ferrous material that are longer than they are fat, lined up. And when the light hits them perpendicularly, they reflect. And if it hits them at some other angle, they don't reflect. So anyway, I'll play a little bit of this video. You can see them. They're really, they bend like up and down. They're very three-dimensional looking, very holographic looking. See the way they move? They just flex and move. Obviously, they're not flexing and moving. I'm just moving the light source. So moving the light source moves the magnetic field. That wouldn't make any sense, right? So clearly, it's just where the light's reflecting and off of what. And moving the light source can't possibly make things bend in and then bend out and do all that kind of crazy crap. So again, this ferrocell thing is completely optical. It has nothing to do with revealing an actual magnetic field. It just has to do with a light trick. Just more crap physics. Crap. So it's not a great video, I concede. So I was just trying to see how I'm trying to get to it bends right into the light. So it's, it can look like it's coming from the LEDs, apparently. The light, in some ways, you can say, yes, it has to emanate from the LEDs, but the only way you can see it is by shining light perpendicular to it. So I don't know how exactly that works. But I certainly know there's none of that ferro material is bending down. I know it's not doing any of that crap. So it's clearly optical and illusionary. Key word. It's illusionary. This is a magic trick. This isn't reality being revealed. This isn't the secrets of magnetism. No, these are the deceptions of magnetism. These are the deceptions of careless physics. Sloppy, lazy, reckless physics. So anyway, I know these guys who do this stuff, who play with these ferrocells all the time, they must already know this crap. And they ought to just out this thing as not being it's not revealing a magnetic field. Obviously, I just made the magnetic field move all over the place with the flashlight. It didn't happen. It didn't happen that way. But anyway, I don't think we need this. And so we'll do some comments. Be nicer if I made them bigger, I suppose. It's always dangerous. See how much room I have. Oh, I got enough room. Because, I need to read them. All right, so this guy, dyslexic artist theory on physics of time. I don't know. Look, I've said it 4 million times. I'm here to do 2 things. Defend my replacement theory, obviously, my unification theory, as way past, should have been accepted 7 years ago, and attacking the conventional model that is incomplete, sloppy, messy, and made up, which I'll play some other video, maybe, and just point out some of the things, they're just obvious that this quantum mechanics is just full of mush. All right, anyway. This is an invitation to see a theory on the physics of light and time that gives us an objective understanding of quantum mechanics. Sure, you're objective. Sure you are. This can be represented mathematically just by one equation, E something M something C squared. So he's modified E equals MC squared. Who cares? Because the C squared is kind of irrelevant. It's just basically saying there's a lot of energy in the mass. Who cares about you've made it special now? Forget about it. With energy, delta E equals mass delta M linked to the Lorentz contraction. Oh, again, so special. Lorentz bullshit. Let's turn straight lines into crooked lines. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Makes our crap work. Yeah, of space and time. So, whatever. You think you're going to win me over with this crap? A bunch of the Lorentz contraction represents time dilation. It says you. And who doesn't already know that? That's the conventional physics, retard. I mean, this idiotic notion that somehow nothing happens until you get 99% the speed of light. Yeah, how convenient that you can't do anything in the real world. You can only do something in a world nobody can ever get to. Time dilation of Einstein's theory of relativity. Yeah, everybody already knows that. Einstein pointed out Lorentz. I mean, what are you saying that's new here? Oh, that's right, absolutely nothing. Then he does all this other bullshit. The C squared represents light radiating out of a sphere, 4 pi. You don't need any 4 pi. So more wasted gibberish. We already have the R squared. It already says radiating from a single point in all directions. 3-dimensional radiation. That's what R squared represents. From a radius forming a square C of probability, whatever that is, says U. At the smallest scale, this process, the uncertainties and possibilities of everyday life are represented mathematically by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Yeah, gibberish times divided by 4 pi. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, believe whatever silly God theory you wish. Believe in whatever Sasquatch you think makes sense, but it's crap. I'm sorry, this Heisenberg thing's never been proven. There's no indication that there's any such thing as matter that doesn't know where it is, or substance in any way, force or matter or energy or anything that doesn't know where the fuck it is. that doesn't have a location. There's no evidence that that's the truth. And it just happens to turn out that the one place we can't see, we just make it up and say, yeah, it's all magical down there. Yeah, the universe gets all magical where we can't see. So just in the place where we can't see, that's where all the magic is. Surprise, surprise. No Heisenberg up there in space. Photons go billions of light years. No Heisenberging, no jumping around, no flying anywhere they want to. No confusion at all. It's just such crap. The brackets in the equation equal representing a dynamic boundary condition of an individual reference frame from an arrow of time. Well, this is just such baby talk. An arrow of time. La 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 la. I mean, it's just so fucking stupid. Time is dictated by one thing. The fact that the photon takes 13 billion years to get here. There's time. Done. The infinity, oh, lovely symbol represents the infinite number of dynamic interactive reference frames. Isn't that so special? So that's all another one of these quantum interpretations is people have this bullshit notion. Now, know what they've done with quantum mechanics now? Entanglement now means that everything gets entangled every time it has an interaction, and it leaves some of its little essence. It essences into the other thing. So now they carry, so when they leave their little interaction, they carry little bits of essence with them. Fucking goddamn religion. Frames that are continuously coming in and out of existence. So more just completely made up bullshit. You've never done this make something out of nothing crap ever, unless you had a big giant black hat, and you make a little rabbit pop out of it. Let's spend $4 trillion on a collider or something and we'll pretend we made matter out of nothing. But even those loonies ain't saying that. I mean, the LIGO loonies are saying they converted 3 solar masses, more energy than the entire universe is emanating at this moment, into thin space. Oh, shit. In and out of existence with each one of the many ways being microcosm of the whole. La 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 la. Well, take this crap somewhere else, okay? I've already displayed my disinterest. Frankly, any dissident theory that isn't popular, like I'll debunk pharaoh cells because they're turning that into a religion. It's worth debunking. Lots of people believe that crap. Nobody believes your crap. So I don't need to debunk it. I don't need to fight this religion because nobody believes this religion. Right? I wouldn't waste my time on the branch Davidians, because there's only 17 of them. So why would I waste my time attempting to convince them that their particular wackiness is really super wacky? So I really don't have time to, psychoanalyze you and attempt to help you grip reality, grok a piece of something real instead of this mush. So take it someplace else. Thank you. Sorry, I'm a busy man. I got sharks to fry. I'm not going to sit there and waste my time on goddamn mosquito fish. All right, so here's more bullshit. Relativity is the key to fake science of atheist cult. You could have said the atheist cult. It would have been a better sentence. As a true skeptic, oh, yeah, you sound like a skeptic. I see this. Yeah, who cares what you see? Because you're obviously looking through shit. You've kept your head in your ass so long. There's just shit coating your eyes, and you can't see where shit. Electric universe rings true to me. Well, that's because you're a little flaming bullshitter. Flat Earth also seems more valid than silly Big Bang. Well, I guess the flat Earth isn't a counter theory to the Big Bang, idiot. It's a counter theory to the fucking round Earth and the fact that we did land on the moon and we got 4 million fucking weather satellites up in the goddamn sky that you all think are the billions of people have conspired to fool you. Okay, millions of people have all conspired to lie to you about the 1,400 frickin' satellites flying around up there. Probably 14,000. But anyway, 1,400 that I know of. Lots of them, idiot. Wake up. Oh, God, it's just so disgusting. These complete lunatics have the right. And the cops don't show up and arrest him right there for saying that. You have no right to tell anybody to wake up, you lunatic. Flat Earth also seems more valid than silly Big Bang from nothing vacuum tube nonsense. Yeah, it's so much more sensible to have a flat Earth from nothing than a round Earth from nothing. I mean, how can you tell other people to wake up when you are brain the fuck dead? I hope Electric Universe can explain problems with modern science, silly theory. Yeah, their theory's brilliant. So you really think lightning bolts made frickin' goddamn craters on Mercury, the moon, all the moons of around Saturn? You think they're a bunch of lightning strikes that somehow don't happen anymore? And you're just going to completely deny the fact that big giant clumps of stuff now and then crash into stuff, and they likely did more of that crashing in the past. And the craters still exist on the planets where they weren't cleaned up. But we actually see the things. We actually saw a big giant frickin' meteor or comet crash into Jupiter. We saw it. We videotaped it. We saw the frickin' thing. No lightning strikes involved. Oh, damn. Would hate to realize it's flat Earth and we all been duped. No, you're an insane frickin' conspiracy theory loop-de-doo nutter. Shut the fuck up, kookball. Look in the mirror. Analyze yourself. You are in big shit trouble, fucker. You are so fucking stupid. I honestly, if I ran the world, okay, you'd be in the straitjacket going to get frickin' tested is to see if you're even possible to educate you. And if not, you'd be humanely put down as a loony fucking tick. Jeez. Why are they commenting here? What do you think my response to that drivel would be? And that's even more insane. They actually think I was going to somehow be impressed. Oh, yeah, that Electric Universe flat earthy thing is so cool. Fuck. I hate this planet. I plan on applying your theory to my anti-gravity project. Well, good luck with that. Because guess what? Gravity's a real force, which means if you're going to do anti-gravity, you have to have a real force to counteract it. Yeah. Photonic transducers translocated into a gyrocon ex-nuco incubator should be good enough to create spectral gels. Well, I'm sorry, then you don't really understand my... Oh, jets. No. Gels, it says... Let's say they're jets, because gels just sounds way too stupid. Which are thickened kinetic mass. Well, then, obviously, what does this have to do with my theory? I mean, I'll give you a timeout, but I don't know. I mean, I should just block you, but I'll just time out you. Where the hell's the timeout go? Hide, timeout, there it is. I mean, wait, you retarded? What are you doing? You just want to waste my fucking life? Yes, it's Copenhagen, which I'm going to deal with, which some idiot has now turned Copenhagen into this, everything just rubs up against each other and spreads their love. That's what they've turned it into. These British loonies. Scientists. I mean, here the birthplace of Newton, the institution Newton built. And these people are talking complete batshit nonsense. I missed the stream, but Superior Mind. but played this while doing work. Okay, well, that's not all right. It's better than playing it while you're taking a dump or something. Quite liked your arguments. I always find it strange when people who advocate waves, bent space, nothing, swirling and dark matter are also the first to quickly attack any concept of ether. Well, I think they should. Of either, maybe he's saying, which those ideas kind of depend on. Ether. Look, the conventionalists don't like the word ether, clearly, but clearly all the dissidents are in love with ether, so I don't know where you're going with that. There is pressure which gives rise to force interaction rate. Yes, but it's only part of the game. Takes pressure to make pressure, so it just doesn't really matter. It's just conversion of one pressure into another kind of pressure. That's all. So gravity is the ultimate pressure. Everything else is just a modification of the pressure created by gravity. Pressure in that sense is key. We can know force bits interact with matter bits, and the graph science model fits. Yes, it does. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so now we go back to loony comments. People think he is me and scream running. Oh, that's the, whatever his name is, Miles Mathis. Optical lenses are only conductor of photons. I really hate these one-sentence pieces of shit kind of comments where you're making some declaration that's so ambiguous and idiotic. So let us say that we believe in ether, which I'm just saying is a stupid redundancy that accomplishes absolutely nothing. It's totally unnecessary. I mean, you can imagine cannonballs being perturbations in Jello. You can imagine it to be like one of the little blobs of Jello. You know how the Jello has little undissolved pieces in it? So you could sort of imagine it. Okay, yeah, cannonball being shot would be like a lumpy piece of ether. Spies. What do I need to? What do I need to do that for? Why don't I just make it a cannonball in nothing? Why do I need to make this ether crap for it to move through, to perturbate through? So yeah, I could turn it into dominoes. I could say that, you know, there's this whole field of pegs or whatever that can fall any way, in an infinite number of ways, and cause a cascade, and they all pop up behind it. You know, I can make all kinds of silly spring-loaded bullshit, but it's all completely superfluous. I don't need to do any of that crap because it doesn't answer the question. It doesn't solve any problem. You can do it just fine without it. It's useless to understanding, in my opinion. It's just totally useless. You want to believe it? Okay, fine. No point in selling it because you got no evidence of it. So this stupid thing, though, optic lenses are only conductor of photons. Everything is apparently a conductor of photons. You can't even figure that part out. Space conducts them, empty space. The atmosphere conducts them. A piece of glass conducts them, yes. Lots of things conduct them, and other things reflect them. So what? What is this as a statement? How is this statement elucidating in any way whatsoever? Oh, it's right. It isn't in any way whatsoever. Clearly, there's atoms that are transparent, which just means a photon goes in a specific direction and it leaves in the same direction. That's called transparent. You can say that's conducting, but that's all that's happening in atmosphere. There's a tiny amount of atoms. Very few of them are hit by a photon flying through. You know, it hits an atom and then it goes through nothing for a while, and then hits an atom, goes through nothing. You know, each little atom is a conductor. The atoms aren't all tied together in the same sense as they're tied together in a bucket of water, but still the light can go through the water. Yeah, come on. Not complicated. I'm going to delete it. I hate this 15 comments in the same video thing too. Heat bends light. Yes. Why can't magnetism generate heat? It can, but the magnet's got to be moving. The field's got to be turned on and off. Go ahead and make an electromagnet and you'll generate some heat and bend light. Well, It can't bend light because light's not now magnetic. Yeah, that's it. Yes, they call it electromagnetic spectrum, but guess what? It's not magnetic. Can't bend light with a magnet. Okay. So heat isn't what bends the light. So you said here, heat bends light. Heat isn't bending anything. Okay. Heat is a semi-undefined word, but heat really just has to do with motion. How much motion in the atoms is what we call heat. But the things that cause the motion is the energy between the atoms. So there has to be something pushing on the atoms, and the heat is usually in the form of infrared radiation that's bouncing between the atoms, light, and keeps pushing on them, but it can't escape, can't get out to the real world because it's trapped between atoms. So it just keeps bouncing around, and the atoms keep being pushed by it and jiggling all over the place. That's heat. The reason why the light gets bent is because the atom isn't staying in one place. So even though it's transparent, when the photon goes in, the atom's moving. And so it goes in when the atom's here, and it comes out when the atom's over here. That's why motion of atoms makes a mess out of, makes messy the transparency of the material. The material is less transparent if the atoms are jiggling. Easy. Shouldn't be making these kind of mistakes. All right, so I get back to the Copenhagen thing. I also do think an ether is needed. Oh, well, then you're stupid and retarded. I didn't know you were stupid and retarded. Oh, I also do not think. Oh, I didn't read it all. All right, so you're unretarded now. An ether is needed. Yeah, it's certainly not needed. And I'm just saying it just complicates something that's simple. Why impose on the bullet some notion that the bullet's really a perturbation of a bunch of vibrations moving through a bunch of bent, swirly, hyperboloids, counter, blah, blah, blah. Why complicate it? It's a bit, a thing. Shooting, going, moving. It doesn't need a medium to move through. Perturbation doesn't explain energy. Again, once you make your stupid ether, you have to have some explanation for what fills in the ether behind and how the ether itself has all this elasticity that it can pull, and I don't need any energy to do it. And it can push, and I don't need any energy to do it. It doesn't explain anything. It just results in needing to explain how the ether works. Exactly. It's just another waste of time building a whole frickin' infrastructure of dominoes or folly sticks or bouncy bands or whatever. It just makes the whole thing more complicated than it needs to be. The action in the universe is so dirt simple. A little photon shoots out of a sun 13 billion light years away, and it flies all the way across the universe at a constant speed and falls into your frickin' eyeball. Well, what do I need? What do you want? Why do you need to complicate that? It's the simplest thing you could imagine. It's simpler than bowling. Why do you need to complicate it? Oh, I just answered the question, didn't I? They need to complicate it because they have to make us into something special. And they have to make the universe into something special. We're energy going la 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 la. We're not fucking scummy worms with a scheming brain. Oh, anyway. All right, so I think I will delete this less than intelligent remark regarding heat bending light. The heat itself does not bend anything. Light can't bend light. Light is bent by electrons, and usually electrons associated with atoms. And if they're moving, the light isn't going to be transmitted accurately. There is a spectrum of magnetism. Oh, here we go. More statements. There is a spectrum of magnetism, frequency, and electricity. We know of only a few bands of the spectrum of them combined. No, there's no extra energy anywhere. There really isn't. There's so many ways to detect it. Obvious ones. Mush. Okay, you have to watch Ken with a dictionary in hand. No, and use it. Emphasis, 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 emphasis. No, I'm sorry. Counter space is not a real word. It's not a real thing. Dielectricity is not a real thing. Well, some of the other crap he says, not real stuff. Loss of inertia, not a real concept. Not consistent with dictionary definitions in any way whatsoever. He doesn't even use the word, he omits it. My definition of inertia has nothing to do with anybody else's definition. It has to do with a 2,000-year-old definition of quacky duck. You know, because back then that's what inertia meant, quacky duck. So another pile of shit, Melissa. You're not winning any points. Ken Wheeler explains nothing. He just makes insane claims. He never proves. I've found more gold in the world with my special magnetizing gold finder. No, afraid not. No evidence provided. I can lick a magnet and tell which side is the south and the north. And no, you can't. Let's see, Ken just keeps repeating the same, yes, obfuscations, going in circles, as though he's explained something fundamental, as if he's explained something in our rational experience, like round, square, up, down, left, right. All of those words now don't mean, they have no meaning. It's circumvented. That's going to your left. Reverse abominated. That's going left. I mean, every simple concept is somehow some perversion of a simple concept into a phrase, a piece of jargon that doesn't mean anything. What's this one? Okay, so I'm done. Oh, good. All right, so now I get on to my agenda. And so where do I have the videos that I want to get to? Yeah, well, I think I'll do this guy from some sort of British place. Some sort of British place. The national place of fucking science or something, whatever the fuck it's called. The Scientific Institute of Fancy Pants. So here it is. Come on. Oh, come on. How's that the wrong video? Because it's this one. All right, so this is titled some sort of bullshit title. No, stupid freaking YouTube trying to sell me on TV. Everything you thought you knew about quantum physics is different. So this guy's name is Philip Ball. Balls for brains. Anyway, so it started off like, oh, no, it started off bad, like, oh, here we go again. And then it started getting good, like what he's saying. Yeah, quantum physics is full of assumptions and presumptions, and it's gone way beyond the evidence. He almost said that. I mean, he didn't say those words, but just about said that. Maybe I'll go back and play that part, because he was admitting essentially that it's full of shit. Servers. So, that doesn't mean anything. I'm going to time out you again, I think. What if quantum computing became a thing? Well, this guy is describing it, and once you figure out what it is, it's idiotic. It's got up spin and down spin at the same time. Or is it spinning down and spinning up, or is it churning up and down, or is it just up and down? And it's bullshit. Preposterous bullshit. This concept of spin isn't even a real thing. You know, it's just momentum of an electron. Oh, anyway, how will that impact your theory? Well, it's not going to. It's not going to happen. There is no entanglement, and there's certainly this whole spin thing is just a crock of shit, this mysterious spin. So that's part of this whole video, because the guy, I always forget his name, which I know I wrote down somewhere here. Alan Aspect. Oh, I remembered it. You know, they never describe this stupid quantum dilemma. You know, they always use some metaphor. So they talk about a black box and a white box, and it measures heaviness or lightness. They always create this thought experiment out of fake stuff. So this idiot creates this stupid 2 boxes, and one makes teddy bears and one makes talking dogs. And I mean, you're just like, oh, you can't actually describe the actual experiment. None of them actually use the real experiment as an example. So they always use a metaphor for this spin crap. And Aspect wasn't using spin. He was using polarization, which I've already pointed out how that's a crock of shit, because that's based on some assumption that it's always 50-50. You know, 50% of the frisbees go through and 50% get blocked, when logically you can understand that no, some percentage of the ones thrown the right way still hit the bars. They don't get through the jail cell. So it's not 50-50 to start off with, bozos. So, you know, all based on assumptions. So they never use the actual experiment, because they know the audience will go, what the fuck? You drew all that, you drew all those conclusions out of that experiment? Are you people insane? I mean, you can't see how far you've jumped ahead of your evidence? So they use this fake teddy bear producing boxes, or magic weight testing boxes, or color boxes, or some other bullshit box to metaphor, to analogize their freaking experiments that are somehow tied to this Bell bullshit. You know, where if you get 85%, you've proved quantum entanglement. You know, if you get 75%, well, then classical physics survives. But if it's 85% or more, it's all of a sudden got to be quantum. I mean, it's such crap. And when you actually hear this crap, you're like, holy shit. This is what they actually do. They're actually this fucking idiotic. All right, well, anyway. Impact your theory. If a mass cloud industry emerges, what is that even? I don't even know what that is. From their supposed quantum supercomputer servers. They won't have anything to do with their supercomputers, but do their own quantum math, because there's nothing else complicated enough for a supercomputer, frankly. Okay, there really isn't. It's absolutely useless shit. All they can do with it is do their theoretical, make me another wonderland to live in. You know, make me another special fake world. Okay, more time outing for you. Oh. 20 years of archiving funding by being on the verge of finally having a true quantum computer. Well, whatever, they're on the verge of something. Funding by being on the verge. Oh, okay. So they're always saying, "Oh yes, it's just another year. We're gonna have a super. Oh, we're moving right up. We're almost got it." Yeah, they're like the guy from that movie Interstellar, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, we got a plan A. Oh yeah, plan A. I got a gravity theory. Yeah, almost solved. Yeah, I got it almost solved. Go ahead, fly out there. I promise. By the time you get back, I'll have it all figured out. This world is so fucking pathetic. All right, where's the fucking goddamn Chrome? This is fucking Chrome. You think you could just say play the video and it would play the fucking video? Excuse me, I'm not supposed to swear. Sam, I'm sorry.
Up until I was about 30,
that was the catch.
I never thought about my weight.
Yeah, I never thought about
active,
being
healthy,
fat.
ate whatever I wanted.
Yes. Didn't give a shit about getting laid by anything that was reasonably female.
We like to start here very often. I don't know whether to reassure you or to disconcert you, but this is one of the most popular sayings about quantum mechanics from Richard Feynman, who said, I think I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics.
Yeah, it's blah, 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 blah. And yes, it's all just, isn't that all funny? Ha, 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 ha. So, and clearly Feynman doesn't understand it because he gave up on trying to understand it. He just didn't care what the causes were, and he says it kind of overtly. He knows it's not waves. He thinks it's particles. Particles can't do, okay, what's happening, but he doesn't think waves can either, really. Because waves don't land in one place and don't do all the stuff that particles do. So it can't be a wave because it always looks like a particle when you look at it. And particles can't explain the phenomenon. So he just gave up. And he's just, you know, I have another video of him where he's doing the same lecture he essentially did in 1980 and like 1990 in some, you know, in some little pussy, whatever, la village in California. I guess they paid him to go out there and pretend to do science. And 10 years later, he hadn't evolved his art. He was making the same jokes, the same bullshit. It was pathetic. I mean, I lost so much respect for him. I mean, it's like he hadn't evolved as a thinking person one bit in those 10 years. He was just talking the same horse crap, bringing up Mayans again and all kinds of, you know, just crap. Crappy. Every year they say they're almost got it. Yes, I get it. All right, so let me get to the part that's sort of important. So this guy, oh, I can't, you know, it's not showing the freaking images. Suck. So there's some part where he has a list of quantum mechanics.
I think that is. And let me start with some of the things that everyone knows. When I say everyone, I mean everyone, inverted commas. So if you haven't seen these things before, don't worry. All I mean is that once you start finding out more about this problem, perhaps this topic,
you can see his little A box and little B box on the table. You know, where they sit there and do their entanglement experiment by reducing it to some sort of magical boxes instead of actually explaining the dopey experiment they claim is proving something.
Perhaps by reading, you know, popular accounts of it, then pretty soon these are notions that you will encounter. And the first of them is that quantum mechanics is weird. And I want to show you what some of those weirdnesses are. The first one is that quantum objects can be both waves and particles. This is called wave-particle duality. The second is that quantum objects can be in more than one state at once, or more than one place at once. They can be both.
Okay, so he says more than one state at once, right? And then he changes it to more than one place at once, which clearly are two entirely different things. So eventually he's going to cross out this whole list and say this list is nonsense. And it's exactly what he argues in the video is what's on this list. He basically overtly talks about this stupid spin thing. You know, it's both up and down spin. That's being in two states at once, isn't it, retard? So why play, you know, this stupid word game? Like somehow he's changing the misconceptions when he's just going to reinforce the misconceptions. I mean, it's so fucking bad.
Both here and there.
Yeah, they come across like a sermon. It comes across like a propagandist, a frickin' propagandist.
These are known as quantum superpositions. Then we hear that you can't simultaneously know exactly two properties of a quantum object. And this is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
And the irony is that, frankly, if they just took the Heisenberg uncertainty principle out of it and just said, no, the principle is we can't measure these things. We don't have any tools. It's like having a little tiny bug and you're trying to measure it with like a giant micrometer or something. And every time you go to measure it, you crush the bug. I mean, we don't have instrumentality delicate enough. We don't have a sharp enough scalpel to cut this straight line. And that's all. It's not that a straight line can't be made. It's not that straight lines don't exist. We just can't do anything, that precise. We can't see these little tiny things because all our seeing mechanisms are too frickin' big. And they're too frickin' big, basically, as nature dictates, in the sense that we're not going to find the microton, okay, to bounce off of the photons so we can reflect something off of them to see where they are. That gimmick isn't going to show up. We're not going to be able to reflect something off of it to see where it is. So all the ways we see, we're not going to be able to see on that level. And on that level, there are no microtons. There is no ether perturbations. I feel your ether perturbations. Photons don't do that. They're just bullets whizzing by. And if they don't hit you, you never saw it. Okay, you might have heard the gun, but you'll never see the bullet. And the only one you're going to detect are the ones that hit you in the fucking face. And by the time you detect them, it's too late because your detector's broken.
Quantum objects can affect each other instantly over huge distances. This is so-called spooky action at a distance.
Okay, I mean, he exactly defends that. The whole second half of this video is a huge defense of spooky action at a distance. He basically says entanglement is true, and it really happens. And they've proven that Einstein's notion that there's probably a variable you're not accounting for, the variable you haven't accounted for theory, we've proven that can't possibly be right. No, you haven't proven anything. So another thing these guys talk, so I never realized what they mean. See, so that was the good thing about watching this idiot, was I never really understood what they meant by predictions. Because I keep saying, what the fuck did quantum mechanics ever predict? They didn't predict, the next model of Maserati. They didn't predict shit. They didn't predict, hey, skirts are going to go up, or, male ness is going to go down. Males are going to get, whatever, small testicles and long beards. They didn't predict any of that shit. What they mean by prediction is they flip a coin 100 times. They figure out, hey, it's like 50-50. Yeah, it's like half the time it's tails, half the time it's heads. Let's write a formula. There. Now we have a formula. 1/2 heads, 1/2 tails. Formula equals the probability. 50-50. Now we have predicted reality. See, we did it. We predicted it. That's how bad it is. It's like they just went to like Las Vegas and they just watched how people won and lost, counted up the statistical facts, wrote the equation for that game. So this is what craps. This is your odds. This is your odds. This is your odds. Wrote some formulas and then said, we have the most predictive science in the universe. When all they did was write a formula to their observations. They didn't predict anything. They're saying they are predicting the outcomes when any idiot can predict the outcomes by just watching. What the fuck? They didn't predict anything. They just wrote a formula saying that if you pour hydrochloric acid on your head, it'll take 13 seconds for it to dissolve to your ears. Here's the formula for that. They didn't predict anything. It's so fucking circular. But I never knew they were using the word prediction to describe the fact that they observe a fact, like, that you can change the thickness of glass and it changes the reflective index. Write a formula for that and state now I predicted every time a piece of glass, every time a photon reflects off a piece of glass, I predicted it. All they predicted was nothing. They're just telling you what the probability is, which you could observe by just doing the experiment. There's no prediction. by any rational description of the word prediction. Stop being so rude to people. No, fuck you. Sorry, I'm not supposed to swear. I don't like you. I did nothing, and you keep muting me. No, I'm going to block you now. You're uninteresting, off subject, and useless. I'm not a psychopathic like the guy alien over here. The guy Alan over here. Over where? Argomanic? No, what are you talking about? I'm going to mute you again. You can call it muting. I'm timing you out is what it says. Aliens can't be gay. They can't? Whatever. They can't exist is what they can't do. But anyway, we'll move on.
We'll hear more about it. Sure.
Yes, we'll hear more about it. I'll show you the part where he crosses this out. And it's just such, he just starts his whole lecture with a gigantic lie, like, oh, I'm going to give you so much better story than this nonsense, when he's just going to spew on the same nonsense. Spew in an insane teddy bear and talking doggy kind of wimpy baby talk.
Shortly, and it arises from a phenomenon called entanglement. You can't measure anything without disturbing it, and so the human.
Yeah. So this is more bullshit, right? Because he describes Heisenberg, which is a principle that says not that it's a problem with disturbing something, not that we can't measure because we don't have rulers that measure this shit without fucking it up. No, that's not Heisenberg. So this isn't even their version of reality. I wish this was their statement. I wish quantum mechanics says you can't measure small things without disturbing them. I wish they would be honest enough and just say that's what it's about. Measurement. We can attempt a measurement. We don't make measurements. We attempt measurements. And usually we kill our patient. Okay, so it's like surgeons killing patients. You don't say, he's a great surgeon if he kills half his patients. And we kill half the things we measure with our measurements. So our measurements are the measurement of something's death, not its life. It's just so frickin' wrong.
Observer can't be extracted from the theory. It becomes unavoidably subjective.
No, it becomes unavoidably elusive, and therefore you have to be careful because the truth will be elusive, because you can't get a videotape. You can't just turn the camera on and say, go ahead, reality.
I don't keep track of regrets.
Fuck you.
Growing up, pretty much everything in my house revolved around meals.
Fuck
my mom was a
you.
great cook.
Fuck you.
The standard model is
fuck this guy. How do you get in my video?
The most frustrating thing.
Another
because it works so well.
Poofter.
And we know for a fact
it works so well
that it is incomplete.
We predicted heads and tails over and over again, millions of times.
What it could be, along with, and this is crucial, along with a logic of the relationships between those coulds and the probability.
What the fuck? There's no line.
So, if this, then that.
Where the hell the video?
What this means is that to truly submission of bafflement or defeat, known as quantum superpositions. Then we hear none of these things.
There. Okay, you can see it barely. There's a big X through the whole thing. So he just X'd through that whole thing, that whole list. And first off, you can't X through some of it because the measurement problem is a real problem. You can't possibly deny the measurement problem. Even if you believe in Heisenberg as a principle, you'd have to concede that, yes, it's also true that it's really hard to measure these little tiny things because we don't have little tiny rulers. I mean, damn, this is such bullshit.
Their attempts to explain or to articulate what quantum mechanics means. Some of them are misleading. Others, I think, are just plain wrong.
Yeah, I think you're just plain full of shit. So I think you're not only just wrong, you're displaying a duplicity and a dishonesty here that's just obvious. I mean, you're obviously being dishonest to cross out a list that you're going to posterize in a second. You're just going to sit there and spend the 30 freaking minutes hyping one of the things you just put an X through.
Others are just unproven interpretations.
They're all unproven interpretations. They're all fucking insane exaggerations and wonderland speculation. They find a hole in the ground and they just start doing their wonderland thing. I wonder if there's talking cards in there and caterpillars and disappearing cats and rabbits with clocks and things. It's all made up. It's just little kids just turning everything into boogeyman and everything, talking trucks, and it just let's have no grip whatsoever on reality. Let's not try to hold on to reality, you know,
or assumptions. I'm saying that we need to change the record when we talk about quantum mechanics. We need to stop falling back on these tired old cliches and metaphors and look more closely.
And that's all he does. He sits there and the irony is that he takes the most rational of the theories, Copenhagen, and turns it into complete irrational mush. I mean, Copenhagen's bullshit. I mean, waves interacting with blah, blah, blah. You know, wave functions, probability functions, blah, blah, blah. But at least it has some lack of definition, in the sense, at least it's enough of a lack of definition, and it stays within this universe. It's not, you know, creating multiverses and shit. But he turns that into wacky, you know, because he somehow uses Copenhagen to defend entanglement, and then to argue somehow that Einstein was, in a sense, proving entanglement by arguing against it. I mean, it's so ironic.
What quantum mechanics does and doesn't permit us to say.
The evidence should be telling us what we're permitted to say. And you don't assert something as an absolute fact until you have something called good evidence. And you don't have any good evidence of any of this stuff. You have weak, feeble, mushy, thin, just crappy as crap could be. You're building the house out of frickin' flammable, gas-soaked balsa wood, and then claiming, I built a good structure to live in. Yeah, no, it's flaming death of your intelligence.
First point to realize is that there's a big difference between quantum theory, the mathematics and the mechanics that you do.
Let's understand, the mathematics is just formalizing what we observe. So yeah, duh, yes, you can put into a formula what we observe. That is not explaining what happened, why as you change the thickness of the glass, it reflects differently. We're not doing this now. It's always something.
We just glimpsed, which scientists use daily to make predictions,
So again, they don't, yeah, I predicted heads and tails is 50-50. I predict that if you roll a dice, the one will come up 1 in 6 times. Every day, I did wonderful, brilliant quantum mechanics. Bullshit. You didn't do anything miraculous. Tell me what it's going to do this time I roll the dice. Right now, this time. Predict it. Oh, we don't do that. Yeah, we just point out the obvious and pretend it's mysterious, and that only we could find it with our special quantum mechanics key. But yes, it's completely obvious. It's 1 in 6 times, yeah, and that's what we're predicting. Maybe if you roll it 12 times, you'll get one, but you might not, because, you know, it's probability, and, you know, you never know when the old one is going to show up. I mean, it's such bullshit. We predict everything. You predict nothing. You predict nothing.
Stuff that allows them to build things like this laptop. So
again, more horseshit that there was some necessary, we had to do all this quantum mechanical theorizing, and we had to think about the disappearing cats and Heisenberg and blah, blah, blah to build a lab. No, none of that happened. None of that happened. None of that happened. Researchers just did things like, seems to get too hot. Is there something we can do about that? Well, instead of using like, lead wire, why don't you try gold? Oh, okay. That's what made the frickin' computer. Little incremental bits of knowledge about how to make something perform better. And they didn't do a bunch of calculations to figure that out. They did a bunch of experiments to figure that out. They just sit there and say, well, what if we dip it in water or something and whatever? Can we try that? Maybe if I piss on it, you think? I'm sure they've done it. I'm sure there's some asshole somewhere in a lab coat pissing on something because he's desperate. Quantum magic was needed to make transistors or something. Not, yes, obvious. I was there when it happened. I mean, I was alive in the age of the transistor. Okay, so I know. And it's nothing more than frickin', I mean, think how long it took them. It's almost embarrassing, right? I mean, Einstein in like the 30s had already done the photoelectric effect, which essentially, okay, is the phototransistor, right? I mean, photons in, electrons out. I mean, we're already halfway there. And look how long it took them, like till 1950, 20 frickin' years to figure out how to, do it with the right kind of material, sand instead of steel.
So this is stuff that really works. There's a big difference between that and the interpretation of the theory.
Yeah, it's a big difference between the fact that we know that if you polish the glass, the reflective index changes. Big difference between with the thin films. The thinner you make the film, then it goes from complete internal reflection to reflection. So you can see light, then no light because there's complete internal reflection, then light, and then no light because of complete internal reflection. And the fact that there's a phase shift in the light every time it goes through a transition from a thicker medium to a lighter medium. All of this stuff can be understood. Yes, we can understand some of this stuff. Physics has acquired some of this knowledge, and they turn these facts into this mysterious cone of BS, that they put on, and this helmet of turn it into pink unicorn bullshit, when you can simply explain that there is a phenomenon, it has a cause, we haven't figured it out yet. Some of us who are a little bit logical kind of understand that the matter's probably doing it. The matter the little bits is interacting with is probably causing the phenomenon. Feynman in this other video 10 years later is using the same dot, on the glass thing. He debunks the dots on the glass theory when, again, I could give me 2 weeks and I'll come up with 200 possible material explanations for why atoms are changing inside of the glass all the time. They're jiggling, as Feynman would say. This is Feynman, a guy who's famous for talking about how matter's all jiggling, Brownian motion everywhere, Brownian motion almost all the way down. He is famous for that. And yet he's too stupid to think the glass might have molecules that are moving, and that movement might have something to do with the photon that reflects versus the one that goes through. Holy shit for stupid.
This is what's so hard to grasp about quantum mechanics, because normally the interpretation of a theory is kind of obvious.
Normally, no one would bother interpreting a theory, right? The theory like evolution. I don't need to interpret it. It tells me something. It's a direct statement. It's basically telling me something quite direct and quite specific. You don't have a theory of quantum mechanics. That's your problem. Your theory of quantum mechanics is it must be magic, because no possible material mechanical thing could explain it. It must be magic. That's your theory. Your theory is not an explanation of evolution and cellular meiosis and chromosome splitting and blah, blah, blah. You don't have a theory. You have a pile of shit, a bunch of nonsensical axioms where we've proven it can't be particles. We've proven the matter doesn't mean anything. It's the photons that are reading our minds. You haven't proven anything. You haven't demonstrated anything. And you haven't articulated anything rational. Except we have a theory that nobody understands. How do you interpret a theory that nobody understands except to interpret it as religion? A nonsensical non-answer is what you have.
Newtonian mechanics. This is the old classical mechanics.
Yes, rational science, where you actually have evidence before you draw conclusions. And if you're going to speculate about possibilities, that's exactly what you do. You say it in a question form. Is it not logical to say that if something moves, something pushed it? Something made it move? Is that not logical? Yes, that's the limits of your speculation. Is it not logical to say the matter is much more complicated than the photon? And if I'm going to blame something for the photon going all wacky, that it might be sensible to blame the matter because the matter has lots more hands pushing on things and doing things, and it can do all kinds of crap where the photon doesn't have any arms or legs and it can't really do anything. So if the photon's moving funny, maybe it's moving funny because something with hands is pushing it funny. Is it not logical? Yeah, let's go back to that science rather than this wacky, we've proven our silly nonsense, multiverse, silly putty bullshit entangled. I love you. Bullshit isn't fucking science. I'm sorry I'm so angry, but it's just disgusting that they get away with this crap. And they're like I said, they're wearing glasses like they're some kind of fucking intellectual. I mean, bullshit. They're fucking retarded. I'll do a video in my Einstein glasses. I don't think Einstein wore glasses, but it doesn't matter.
That tells us how everyday objects move about and behave. So it tells us how things like tennis balls and spaceships move.
Again, it doesn't do any of that shit, okay? Tennis balls and spaceships are not quantum mechanical. All their quantum mechanical effects are invisible because they're tiny, tiny, tiny effects blended over a huge giant object, and there's absolutely no quantum mechanics involved in the flight of a tennis ball or in the flight of a spaceship. It's just another fucking piece of propagandist lie. It doesn't happen that way. There's nothing mysterious. Those things are dead fucking reliable. We send goddamn probes and hit goddamn comets with them without doing any fucking quantum mechanics. So is it just more propaganda? Just spill out this propaganda that somehow we can't land a satellite on a fucking comet unless we do some quantum mechanics. Bullshit. Absolute fucking lie. It's a fucking lie. I mean, right there in front of you. There's no quantum mechanics to deciding where a tennis ball goes or how a cannonball flies or any of that shit. It's just 100% fucking lie. You're telling me this guy is too stupid not to know that nobody ever in the history of mankind has used quantum mechanics to aim a gun? Lots of new religions are born from some of these interpretations. All of them are religions. Quantum mechanics is a religion. It's a fucking bullshit factory. Many worlds, consciousness, create reality, etc. Yeah, it's disgusting. So the stupid morons he's talking to and the dopey audience will interpret his silly interpretation of quantum mechanics as an excuse to go even a step further. So he creates Alice in Wonderland, and then they put the Matrix in there. And then they put Barney the dinosaur in fucking Wonderland. And they got the Teletubbies over here. So they just add more wacky characters to this already wacky play. Because these people can't exercise a little bit of scientific discipline. Look at them praying. I'm praying to my God, quantum mechanics. Fuck. All right. Yes, as things are scaled, the physics becomes 100% probable. Yes, and it also becomes obvious. Another thing that becomes obvious is this whole idea of everything happened, right? The Bohr, is that the Bohr interpretation? Everything, Feynman's interpretation, everything happened. That what that really means is everything happened that isn't canceled out by something else. So everything that's left has a right. The only thing that doesn't have a duplicate is the thing in the fucking center. You see the thing in the fucking center? There's no fucking reciprocal. The thing in the center is the thing left over. Everything else cancels out. It's that simple. That's all quantum mechanics is saying. Everything happens and everything is canceled out by its reciprocal. Oh, duh. So what happens? This thing fucking happens. The thing everybody knows would happen. The only thing that could have happened. Oh, fuck.
This is the interpretation here isn't difficult. The Newtonian mechanics tells us what paths objects take through space as forces act on them, and we don't.
Yeah, and that works, and it's a whole big universe runs on it. The whole medium-sized universe runs on it, and you assholes, because we can't measure it, are claiming the small universe is wacky as fuck. There's all kinds of wacky shit going on. We're in the wacky verse. So even though every piece of evidence that we can really grok, that we can grab a hold of, take a look at, see, watch over billions of fucking years, the stuff moving slow as fuck, the stuff big as fuck, yeah, all of that stuff looks solid as hell. And you fuckers are basically selling the dupers on this fucking idiotic notion that all the magic is hidden way down there where we can't see it. It's all in the hidden little hole, the rabbit hole. I hate this shit. Am I back yet? You're just pushing it. You're just saying to me, block this useless fucker.
I have to ask, what do you mean by path? What do you mean by object?
Yeah, so more crap. Like we can't figure out that at least the photon is an object. It does something so discrete, so precise. It is the smallest thing you could land somewhere is a frickin' photon. It makes the smallest little blop when it lands somewhere. Oh, we can't understand that. Yeah, we can.
What do you mean by force?
We don't need to do any of this crap. What do you mean by force? Well, the problem force is fucked up is because you assholes have created two ways of making it. Virtual forces that are magnetism, the virtual bullets. You have virtual bullets, and then you have for gravity, you have bent air thing. The bent air moves the bullets down. The bent air did it. That's another thing I was thinking about, because I'm still working on the drag issues. And I was thinking about drag in terms of the atmosphere. And I was wondering how much, of the space shuttle taking off, how much of the problem is gravity and how much of the problem is cutting through the frickin' atmosphere? How much is it the friction of the atmosphere that you have to overcome versus just gravity?
Kind of obvious.
Kind of
That's
obvious.
not so for quantum mechanics. And
yes, and that's why you should be suspect of it. That's why quantum mechanics shouldn't be revered. That's one of the reasons to say, well, maybe this isn't the right answer, because it doesn't have any answers. It doesn't explain anything.
Let me give you a glimpse of why. To predict what a quantum object will do, in place of Newton's equations of motion, scientists generally use the equation devised by Erwin Schrödinger in 1925.
All right, they don't use this equation because they have to modify the equation to fit the experiment. So they just change the variables and change the definition of the variable. So impediments become like openings, and then openings become widths of the glass, and everything. They just keep changing, modifying to create this relationship that does exist between time, as I've pointed out, tipping point. This is all about tipping electrons in a sense. pushing them into a trampoline and how far they push back. Obviously, timing is everything in that circumstance. If you have to hit the electron exactly at the right times to get to go all the way down and spring all the way back. So it's all a very discretely timed event. And the formula basically is an illustration of that. The formula basically formalizes the fact that there is a resonant timing issue involved in the interaction between photons and electrons. And that's the Schrodinger equation. It's not a mysterious equation. It's just an equation about time and pressure, energy, which they've turned into wavelength and frequency, where the wavelength and frequency really isn't the energy. It just has to do with the effect. There's not more energy in the light. There's more effect in having the right resonant pressure. Pushing it the right way, the right timing is everything. And you can see that in everything you interact with. You can see it if you vibrate something, you want to break it. If you hit it at the right, as it's moving towards, as you hit it again, it'll break. If you hit it when it's moving away, it will it'll vibrate more. I mean, you can see that in your day-to-day life. It's like hitting a ball going around in a circle or something. You can get the idea that there's a certain time. Say you got one of those spinning balls on a stick, and you're hitting it. You can get the idea that a little too late hitting it doesn't work. Too early doesn't work. Just right, and you get the maximum out of it. I mean, we can understand that. That's all Schrodinger's equation represents, and yet they're turning it into some other mysterious pile of crap.
To describe the idea that quantum particles might act as if they were waves. This is the Schrodinger equation, and it doesn't tell us what...
So again, there's no waves in it. There's just frequency. There's a timed cycle. And the fact is that electrons are highly sensitive to timing. That's all. No mystery.
The trajectory of a particle is. Instead, it gives us something called a wave function. And the wave function can be used to figure out where we might find an object, what properties it might have, an object like an electron, say. So the typical shape of a wave function of a...
So this is more crap. It's just this part is so freaking irritating. Because, another guy in another lecture, apparently they've done these fake imagery where they've shown an image of iron atoms creating a wall. And then they show electrons like they were drips inside the fluid in between the wall of atoms. It's not a real picture. It's a completely synthetic, created picture. It has nothing to do with real time. It has nothing to do with anything like that. It's a completely synthetic construction, based on how much energy they got over long periods of time. And so they've just created a fake validation, evidence validating their theory that isn't a real image. It's completely synthetic, completely. There's not one real element. There's not one real photon. There's not one real pixel in the image. It's entirely synthetic in its creation. And they're selling it like it's a real picture of, here's a real picture of quantum effects. It's not a real picture. It's just so annoying.
Particle like an electron in space might look something like this. Okay. So what does this mean?
So again, the typical bullshit. It might look something like this. What does this mean? Oh, it's a probability it could be here and a low probability it could be here. No, it's just when we attempt to measure it, our attempts are shitty. We can't measure it precisely, so we end up with a bunch of random, whoops, a little bit too late, whoops, a little bit too early. That's all this represents, that we can never measure any event taking place on the scale, the time scale that this stuff takes place on. So we're always missing the exact moment. The exact moment. We'll keep, the exact moment keeps, whoops, too early, whoops, too late, whoops, we keep missing. because we don't have the instrumentality to see the exact moment. It's just such a more lies. Again, this is just a synthetic representation of reality that they've blended it into their theory. They've said, look, we're going to own it. You know, we're going to turn it into this mush when it has nothing to do with the reality. All right, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. This is going to take forever.
The measurements that we make on it. Now, this account of quantum mechanics is more or less the one given by the Danish physicist Niels Bohr and his collaborators, such as Heisenberg, and it's known today as the Copenhagen interpretation. Copenhagen was where Niels Bohr was based.
Right, now he's going to pervert that simple interpretation, which is just the Schrodinger equation. It's just basically saying, let's understand this as, you know, some of these phenomena. It's wave interference, even though it really isn't consistent. Even though you have to use silly Huygens gimmicks and other kinds of nonsense to understand this probability function and this thing called interference, which really doesn't happen.
Now, I'm not saying that this interpretation is the right one, but what...
Yes, you are. Yes, he spends, like I said, the rest of this video. So he spends the next 30 minutes basically promoting a bunch of crack shit, crazy crap that he's perverted this interpretation into and asserting it quite assertively. He doesn't leave any doubt what he believes.
What's valuable, I think, about it is that it tells us where our confidence about meaning has to stop.
Your confidence, you don't even understand the word, okay? Because you think anything you can imagine, you have a right to be confident that it exists, that your imagination is reality.
Quantum mechanics doesn't permit us to say anything with confidence about reality.
And that's all you do, is say things with confidence about reality. It's got to be a wave. It's got to be the photon. The photon, there's no other explanation. It's not possible to explain it. Nobody's ever explained it. Blah, 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 blah.
Beyond what we can measure of it.
And we just pointed out, as anybody who understands quantum mechanics at all should at least be able to concede, measurement is a real problem here. We have a real problem measuring any of this crap because we can't see it. We can't interact with it individually, a photon at a photon, and we can't do any of that. We have to just watch effects and try to sit there and surmise what causes the effect when 1 million people do this or 1 million people do that. It's like watching groups of 1 million people moving around saying you understand why they're doing it. You don't understand shit.
And here's what I mean by that. One way of speaking about this measurement of a quantum particle says that before the measurement, the wave function might be this typical sort of broad, spread out thing. But when we make a measurement on the particle...
Let's just understand, we don't make a measurement in the sense that we can never say exactly at 10 o'clock, I'm going to look at what the needle says. We can't do that because we can't even figure out where 10 o'clock is exactly. So it's our imprecision that makes sure the measurement's not going to be a measurement of what is. It's going to be a measurement of a range of possible is, okay, that we're going to construct by missing, by hitting it the wrong time, by moving our arm after when the ball's on the wrong side. Whoops, 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 missed it. And we're going to call that a real thing when that thing, that miss, has nothing to do with some requirement to miss. It just has to do with the fact that we lack enough precision to see the ball and to hit it when we're supposed to.
Suddenly, it collapses into this spike at one particular place because we know, having made the measurement, where the particle is. Now, this is generally called, for obvious reasons, collapse of the wave function.
Yes, and it's just another silly term where there's nothing being collapsed. You're destroying, you're ending the experiment, essentially. You're basically killing that photon to know exactly where it is right now. you put a brick wall in front of it and it hits the brick wall and you say, okay, now I can see it. It left a stain right here on the wall. It's a little blood spot here. Photon. Got it. But it's the end of the experiment. It's the end of it's the end of the story for that photon. So now there's no mystery from where you could trace its path rationally back to a source. There won't be an irrational source. There's always going to be a rational source somewhere that you can trace it back to.
The problem is that there's no real physical prescription for what's going on here.
Yes, there's no physical prescription. There's no physical, it's the wrong word, right? You're not trying to prescribe, you're trying to diagnose. There's no rational diagnosis for the cause of why the photon happens to be in that location, or why it's in that location, or why it's in that location. You have an irrational cause because you have an irrational notion about what a photon is. You think it has arms and wings and flies and does all kinds of magical things. When no, all it does is does what the force tells it to. It just gets pushed by shit. Doesn't even get pushed by shit. That's the wrong way to say it. It interacts with matter, and matter bends its movement. It moves perpetually. All it does is swim, 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 and only way it can turn, it has no turning mechanisms. The only way it can turn is it has to bump into a piece of matter. So it came from a piece of matter. Always. You can always trace its origin back to the piece of matter that it last bumped into. And that's what decides where it's going. The last thing it bumped into is what decides where it's going. It's that simple. And you've turned this into frickin' a whole theory of woo.
Within quantum theory, you have to sort of put in this collapse by hand. So that's a problem.
Yes, it's a problem. And now he's, you know, it's just funny. He talks about this stupid collapsing photon, and like I said, and then he jumps into entanglement as if there's no problem, as if they've proven it so many times and it's just done. We've done all that needs to get done to demonstrate that this is an undeniable fact, that there's photons that feel each other's pain. I mean, it's just so bad. All right, well, anyway, I'll save some of this for later. We can do it next time. No point in drowning in this crap. Sorry, I really don't intend to get this irritated, but it's just so damn irritating that they get away with, like I said, just preaching this fucking religion like it's science, like it's something a reasonable, intelligent mind should be sitting there wasting their time going, is Barney the dinosaur driving the photons? It's a silly answer. Okay. So let's see. I'll give you a second, see if anybody wants to say anything rational. I don't think there's any rational people in the available universe, unfortunately. Sad but true. Just nutters everywhere. 11 viewers. Yeah, pretty pathetic. Sad, 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 sad world. The bad, 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 bad world. Anyway, till the next time, and sad.